Okay, so this is a quick demo video to show how to do the translations within Cordova. The first thing you need to do is have a directory within your workstation that holds the Crowdin tools that you need. So you'll need the Crowdin CLI.jar file, there's this Crowdin YAML file, the GitHub Crowdin.sh script which I created, and that's it. So let's look and see what the Crowdin YAML looks like. So here this basically is telling you that we're using the Crowdin file project, and the API key is from the Crowdin itself. You want to specify your base path. In this case it's where my Cordova path is and which files that you want to translate. So in this case we're taking all of the files within the Cordova docs directory and we're outputting it into a directory for each language that we're outputting. So this might be ES for Spanish, for example. And then for each of the plugins, we have a separate command here, and this is basically saying look within the doc directory. So within docs, it's called docs, but within the plugins, it's called the doc directory. So we're looking for all of the markdown files, and again, we're translating it and putting it into the language code and then the original file name. So that's that file, and then we have the GitHub Crowdin script file, and this is one that I created to automate the process. Basically, every time there's a new plugin added, you would just add it to this list of Git repos, and that'll tell it to automatically go through each of these repositories and pull them all in to do the translation. So you don't really need to know what's going on here. You just need to know that if you do have to add a new plugin, you would do it here, and that's the only spot that you'd ever have to change here. So let's go ahead and look at our directory structure. So I am in this Git repository for Cordova for me, and let's do a list to show all of the repos. Basically that list I showed you before up here of all the repositories, we need to make sure that this aligns with all of the ones that you have locally, because if you have something here and it's not locally, it's going to throw an error. Okay, so now if we want to run our script file, in my case, it is under the Crowdin directory, and it's called the GitHub Crowdin.sh file. For me, I run it as sudo, just because I need to make sure that I have all the rights to do that, depending on your setup. So the first thing it does is it prompts you for the name of the JIRA issue. So I always create a JIRA issue specifically for that month of translations. In this case it's CB7471 for September. So you go over here and you say CB7471 and hit enter. And now it's going to run through my script. So basically it makes sure that my Git repository is up to date with what's out there on master. Okay, so basically right now I'm rebasing the code on the translations. This is one part I have not figured out how to automate. There's probably a way, but basically I have to quit out of each of these things showing me what the rebase is based on. So So this is how it becomes a little bit time consuming, as you have to go through and wait for each of these things and make sure you X'd out. Alright, and vibration's the last one. So you might think you're done, but you're not. So now you go back into Crowdin, and you go into the Project Cordova directory, hit enter, and you'll see that these are all of the languages that are translated. Spanish is only at 98%, Polish is 98%, we don't see any that are at 100%. And so since none of them are at 100%, none of these translations are going to be pulled back into the repository. So now is the manual step. So you have to click on, I use Spanish because I know a little bit of Spanish. I click on that, and now I go through and I see all of the ones that are not at 100%. So you scroll down, here's one at 71%. So I open that in a new window and keep scrolling. What else? Here's one at 96. Okay, so now that we've opened all of the markdown files that aren't at 100%, what you need to do is go through and check to see if there's any new updates that are code updates. So a new update usually shows up in red, so these are all old updates. So here all this stuff is red, so it's new. What you want to do is look for stuff that is code that you don't want people to translate. So let's pretend that this is code. So you just click on the area, it highlights it, and then you'd click on Do Not Translate. And you can see that it turns it almost like a gray color, the text. That just means that it's not translatable by translators. If you make a mistake, you can click Mark Available, and again, it's no longer the gray color. So the reason we want to do that is because we don't want the code itself to be translated, just because it would look funny. So for example, this one is a piece of code, Cordova Platform Update. We don't want platform and update to be translated because the actual names to run this command are in English. So now we're done. We can close out these files, go back over here. It's still going to say 71% translated for that file, but that's okay. You go click on Cordova. As an administrator, you can still see that we're not at 100% for anything. So this is alright. This is what you would leave it as if you wanted people to come in and help do translations. But let's pretend that we're about to push out a new release of Cordova, in which case we need to get these to 100%, otherwise they won't be included in the translations. So to get to 100%, we'll do some machine translation. So what we do is we click on Edit Settings, we'll go to Machine Translation, and you want to click on Pre-Translate via Machine. So here I select all the files, keep it as Microsoft Translator, and then you can choose which languages that you want to translate. We've been doing just the top 10 languages that are also supported by the IBM Worklight product. So we got those three. We got German, Italian, Japanese, Korean, Russian, Polish, and Spanish. So now we click Pre-Translate via Machine. All of the documentation snippets that have not been translated, it will try to translate using Microsoft Translator. So this can take a little bit of time waiting for it to get from, to 100% translated. Okay, so once it gets to 100%, you'll see a summary of all the files that have been translated. In this case, in French, it's only been the index.md file and this many words. So we can close it out. Just to verify, let's go under the Cordova page. We can scroll down, and you can see that now we have translated but needs to be validated. So all of these languages made it to 100% translation. Now there's one more step we need to do before we rerun our script. You go under the Settings tab. We're going to click on Build Project. And this just makes sure that the latest is available for download using the Crowdin scripts. So again, this can be a little time consuming waiting for the build to finish. Okay, so once it's done building, you can see the last build update will be recent, and that previous dialog will go away. So now we want to come back over to our command line. We're going to run our GitHub command again. This is CB7471. So this time when it goes through, the languages should be at 100%. unless the timing was incorrect so that somebody else pushed a documentation change since the last time you ran it. In which case you have to go through that step again of making sure within Crowdin that there's no code changes and getting it to 100%. So right here what it's doing is it's saying we're checking to see if this file is updated and it hasn't changed within what's out there on the Crowdin site, so it says skipped. So skip's good. If you see something that says okay, that means there was a change since the last time you ran it, and you'll have to go in and make sure the changes are updated within Crowdin. Okay, so there it printed out the languages that are not at 100%, and that's okay because we have a lot of languages within the system, but I don't see it printing out that our 10 languages are not at 100%, so we're good. It continues on. Right now it's downloading the files for each of the different languages. So it got all the files from the documentation folder, and now it's getting some from the plugins repository as well. And it does this for each of the languages. Okay, all done. So now you can verify that it worked correctly. You can go into your GitHub, so we'll go GitHub, Apache Cordova, and let's go into plugin. Sure, we'll go to battery status. So it says docs. There we go. So there were no changes on this file, so you don't see anything. It says 3 months ago, no changes. So that's it. You got to 100%. That's all you have to do. If you do it once a week, then it keeps it up to date within the Crowdin tool, and then you'll want to make sure it's at 100% right before a big release. But otherwise, it doesn't take much time as long as you have the initial setup and you have the right files in the right spot. It's a pretty simple process.